Imagine tuning into your TV back in the golden age and finding not three, but four major networks. A real battle for the airwaves, with one you probably never heard of. Today, we're taking a look at a forgotten television network, a story of innovation, but ultimately, downfall. A reel could have been a contender tale. So dive into why this pioneer matters and why it ultimately vanished from the TV landscape.
The story really starts with a man named Alan B. Dumont, a brilliant engineer.
So not a network exec or a showman?
Not at first, no, he was focused on the tech itself.
Right, the television set.
And he was the one who really made the TV set practical.
I mean, I know those early TVs were notoriously unreliable.
Oh yeah, the first cathode ray tubes would only last like 24 hours.
Wow, so you'd buy a TV and it would die in a day.
Pretty much Dumont's innovation was extending the lifespan of those tubes to like 1,000 hours.
So a huge difference, and suddenly TV was something you could actually invest in.
Exactly. It went from a novelty to a real form of entertainment.
Okay, so he cracks the technology problem, but now he has to get people to buy these new and improved TVs.
Exactly. And he realized people need a reason to own a TV.
So he starts a network.
Yep. A bold move.
Yeah, considering NBC and CBS were already giants, and even ABC was gaining ground.
And those networks all had radio networks to build on.
Dumont was starting from scratch.
No stars, no built-in audience loyalty. It was a real uphill battle.
And yet they produced some truly amazing shows.
Some real TV firsts.
Like Cash and Carry.
The very first network game show.
And The Plainclothesman.
The first police procedural.
Predating shows like Dragnet by years.
Years. And then, of course, Captain Video and his Video Rangers.
The OG sci-fi show.
Capturing kids' imaginations long before Star Trek.
And it's even more impressive that they did all this on a shoestring budget.
Yeah, they were always scrappy.
But what really sets them apart for me is their commitment to diversity.
Absolutely way ahead of their time.
You had shows like The Hazel Scott Show.
The first U.S. network show with a black woman as host.
And The Gallery of Madame Luce.
Starring Anna May Wong, the first U.S. TV show with an Asian American lead.
And this was all in the 1950s, a time when that kind of representation was practically unheard of.
Really shows their forward-thinking approach.
And it wasn't just about being progressive. They clearly understood that good stories could come from anywhere.
Right, and that audiences were hungry for different voices and perspectives.
Like with Life is Worth Living, hosted by Bishop Fulton J. Sheen.
That show was a massive hit.
Went head-to-head with Milton Berle, didn't it?
It did. Mr. Television himself and Bishop Sheen's show actually beat him in the ratings.
Wow. That's saying something.
It showed that thoughtful content could compete with pure entertainment.
And they were also pioneers in sports broadcasting.
The first to air nationally broadcasted NFL games.
Really ahead of the curve there.
They understood the power of sports to draw in viewers.
So with all these innovations and all these firsts, why did Dumont ultimately fail?
Well, there were a lot of factors, both internal and external.
A perfect storm of challenges, you might say.
Yeah, let's dive into those and see how it all unfolded. One of the biggest roadblocks for Dumont was the FCC's freeze on new TV station licenses.
Yeah, I remember reading about that.
It was supposed to be temporary, but it ended up lasting 4 years.
Wow, that must have been brutal for a network trying to grow.
It was like being told you can open a news store, but you can't actually sell anything in it.
So they couldn't expand their reach at all?
Nope, while their rivals were adding stations and gobbling up market share.
Ouch. Yeah, that had to hurt. And then on top of that, you had the whole UHF versus VHF issue.
Right, that was another huge headache for Dumont.
Can you explain that one for folks who might not be familiar with the technical side of things?
Sure. So back then, most TV sets were only equipped to receive VHF signals.
The standard channels we all know.
Right. To get UHF channels, you needed a separate converter.
And those weren't cheap, were they?
No, they could cost almost as much as the TV itself.
So people weren't exactly lining up to buy them.
Especially when they could get all the big networks on VHF.
So Dumont was essentially broadcasting on a frequency that most people couldn't even access.
Exactly. It's like having a great product, but nobody can find it on the shelves.
Tough break for them. Talk about an uphill battle.
It gets worse. They also had to contend with competition from a rather surprising source.
Oh, who was that?
Paramount Pictures.
Wait, Paramount Pictures? But they were part owner of Dumont, weren't they?
Yeah, it's a weird twist in the story.
Sounds like a conflict of interest to me.
Oh, it definitely was. Paramount had their own ambitions in the TV world.
And they weren't afraid to step on Dumont to get ahead.
Exactly. They basically started competing with their own partner.
What did they do?
Well, for one, they opened competing TV stations in major markets.
Directly challenging Dumont's affiliates,
Yep, it was a real power play.
taking viewers and ad revenue away from Dumont.
They wanted to have their cake and eat it too.
And it didn't stop there, did it?
Nope. Paramount also launched their own syndicated programming service.
The Paramount Television Network.
Right, and that directly competed with Dumont for content and distribution.
So instead of helping Dumont grow, Paramount was actively working against them.
It was a pretty messy situation.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
And then there was that whole FCC hearing about the ABC-UPT merger.
Oh, yeah, that was a real low blow.
What happened there?
Well, a Paramount exec publicly badmouthed Dumont's TV sets.
Seriously. What did he say?
He basically trashed their quality, said they were inferior.
Wow. Talk about kicking someone when they're down.
Yeah, it was a real knife in the back.
And it happened right when Dumont was trying to gain legitimacy.
The timing couldn't have been worse.
So their own partner sabotaged them.
Pretty much it was a major factor in Dumont's downfall.
Wow, what a crazy story. You know, it's a shame that they faced so many obstacles because they really did produce some amazing programming.
They did. They were true pioneers in so many ways.
Let's talk more about those groundbreaking shows and how their legacy lives on. It really is amazing how much they accomplished, despite all the challenges they faced.
They were incredibly resourceful.
So what made their shows so special?
Well, for one, they weren't afraid to experiment with different genres and formats.
Like Cash and Carry, for instance.
Exactly. That show wasn't just the first network game show. It was also innovative in its use of audience participation.
And that fast-paced format really hooked viewers.
It laid the groundwork for all of the game shows that came after.
From The Price is Right to Jeopardy.
Exactly. And then you had The Plainclothesman.
Which basically invented the police procedural.
It really did. It was so groundbreaking because it focused on realistic police work.
And that gritty urban setting.
Right, and they used handheld cameras, which gave it a real sense of immediacy.
Yeah, you felt like you were right there with the detectives.
And that had a huge impact on later cop shows.
Like Dragnet and Law and Order.
Exactly, and then of course there's Captain Video and his Video Rangers.
The granddaddy of all sci-fi shows.
It really was, and it came out at a time when space travel was still just a dream.
So what made it so captivating for audiences?
Well, it tapped into that post-war fascination with science and technology.
Yeah, everyone was looking to the future.
Exactly, and Captain Video gave them a glimpse of what that future might hold.
With spaceships and ray guns and all that.
And the special effects were pretty impressive for the time.
Yeah, I bet. And those serialized storylines kept people coming back for more.
It was appointment viewing.
It's incredible that these shows created on such limited budgets had such a lasting impact.
They really did. They became cultural touchstones.
But beyond the individual shows, what do you think Dumont's lasting legacy is?
I think their biggest contribution was their commitment to diversity.
Yeah, they were way ahead of the curve on that.
They recognized the need for representation on screen long before it became a mainstream concern.
And they gave opportunities to minority performers who might not have had them otherwise.
They paved the way for a more inclusive television landscape.
Do you think they fully grasped the significance of what they were doing?
I think they did. To some extent, they certainly saw the business value in appealing to a wider audience.
But it was also more than that, wasn't it?
They had a genuine belief in the importance of showcasing diverse voices.
And that's something that continues to inspire us today.
Absolutely. And then there was their foresight in recognizing the potential of sports broadcasting.
Yeah, bringing those NFL games into people's homes.
They understood the power of live sports to connect with viewers.
And they were right.
The sports broadcasting industry is huge now.
It all goes back to Dumont, in a way.
They were pioneers.
So even though they ultimately failed, their influence is undeniable.
They left an indelible mark on television history.
A legacy of innovation, diversity, and creativity.
And their story is a reminder that even in failure, there can be triumph.
Well said. It's been a fascinating journey exploring the world of Dumont.
I'm glad we could bring their story to light.
Me too.
And that wraps up our journey through the rise and fall of the Dumont Television Network, a story of innovation, ambition, and an enduring legacy. While Dumont's lights may have dimmed, its contributions to science fiction and television history continue to shine brightly. From the groundbreaking Captain Video and his Video Rangers to pioneering the very idea of serialized TV drama, Dumont paved the way for the sci-fi epics we love today. So next time you're binge-watching your favorite space adventure, remember the network that dared to dream it first. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, keep exploring the channels of history.